Well, hello there. My name is Dave Bila. I want to welcome you to this new edition of News and Views broadcast by Access LaPorte County on Public Access TV Channel 99. We are a weekly public opinion program addressing local, state, and national topics and issues to the Michigan City and surrounding areas. Opinions are the views and responsibilities of those making the comments and do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of this program or its by co-producers. Tony took, I don't know, he's feeding the geese or something, I don't know. We will adhere to broadcast rules, but absolutely no one's First Amendment rights, freedom of speech, or freedom of the press will be either muzzled nor denied. And unauthorized use of the accounts, descriptions, and events of this program is strictly prohibited. We hope you enjoy the program, the discussion, and the participants. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a few things in our existence that don't go away. You know?
Death and taxes.
Death and taxes. You know? And it's a situation that we all have to live with, whether we like it or not. And so the individual out there is basically trying to do his best to get by as lean as possible. And there's other individuals on a yearly basis wanting to get into your pocket. And why do they want to get into your pocket? Well, they want to get into your pocket because of state law, because state law mandates basic city services like fire, police, sanitation, and garbage, and municipal services that need to be paid for. Well, how do these various services get paid for? What is the funding mechanism to provide a value on the amount of water in Lake Michigan that is free being pumped through the system of the city of Michigan City through the various pipes and through our services that provide us that basic city service. It may be a minuscule issue that I'm talking about, Steve, but it's an issue. Is that water that flows through the tap, is it assessed as a city service?
So we don't assess anything that everyone's going to have. So things like attachment to a water line or sewer line, septic, things like that, we don't assess.
So what are your parameters?
What we assess is things that add value to a property that make it individual. So a house,
garage.
A garage is absolutely a great example. If you have a large, ornate garden shed or something, if it's something 120 square foot or less, typically we're not looking at that, but driveways we don't look at. If you have an in-ground pool, that's something that adds value that you're going to be assessed on. Again, any barns, pole barns, things like of that nature.
So along with that then, would there be things that would drag your assessment down, such as a roof that's leaking?
Absolutely. The quality of your home, the condition is a major factor of it. When we assess a house, we give it a grade, which is the overall quality of construction for its age, but then there is a condition factor. So, you know, if there's a house there's say 2 houses from 1850, one of them perfectly, you know, it's been maintained, it looks wonderful even today in 2025, that might have an excellent condition because of its age. But you could have one that holes in the roof, one of the floors is falling through, that thing's going to be a very poor, and that they're going to have very different assessments because of that condition.
So let's start with, I'm a buyer of a house, brand new. There are signs out there that say in certain subdivisions $300,000 and up. I just bought one of those $300,000 and up houses. I think I'm right at $300,000. How would you assess that?
It should be, your assessment should be about $300,000. I mean, at the end of the day, that's where we want it to be. Because we do mass appraisal and not individual, so we're not taking your house and comparing sales to say, okay, here's other houses of the exact same size and parameter within a certain area, and then adjusting your assessment accordingly. We're saying, based on the cost basis, so what we were just talking about, the square footage of your home, the age, the condition, what features and amenities it has, how much land you have, and how that land is being utilized, whether it's agricultural or residential, etc. We're going to take that gives us our base value, our cost. You're going to be put in a neighborhood of similar type properties. So say Potawatomi Park, for an example. It's a nice homogeneous neighborhood. We use sales then each year, and we're going to use sales not ones that are divorce decrees or, you know, 2 friends selling to one another who might give a discount. It's going to be arm's length transactions. that we use those assessed sales compared to our assessments to tell us if our ratio is too high or too low. If our ratio is too low, we have to raise the entire neighborhood. We can't say, you bought for 300,000, I'm raising you to 300,000 and not touching anything else. That's called sales chasing, and it's something that is illegal in Indiana. But because it's not just your property, the aim is we should be at 300, but it may be up or down 10%.
Got it. Well, we didn't do this, so I want to start out by introducing Steve. You've got a little taste of where his expertise is. So as a result of that, this makes my introduction a lot easier. But this is Steve Pollock. He is an assessor. He works out of the assessor's office. He has 11 years experience in that office. And in addition to that, under the rules of the state of Indiana, he is a level 3 assessor, which allows him to do real property, such as homes, and also commercial property. So we're going to be talking about that in a few minutes. But right now, I'd like to stay on the discussion about homes, because I think a lot of our viewers may not know exactly how they get assessed, and if they feel it's unfair, what they should do about it. So every year they come out with an assessment. Talk a little bit about that assessment.
Right. So Indiana, being a market value, when we switched to market value in 2002, we started having to send out a form. It's called your Form 11. LaPorte County, we choose to send it on a bright green piece of paper, so it's very noticeable. It's one of those things we don't want you to miss, because that is your invitation to come and tell us we're wrong.
Okay.
So what that form does, it shows you what your assessment was the previous year, and it shows you your assessment for the upcoming tax year. When that comes out, you have the right, regardless of whether it went up, down, or stayed the same, you have up until June 15th from that point to, and the form will come out beginning of May, end of April, beginning of May, and you have until June 15th to file that appeal. In filing an appeal, what you're saying is that I disagree with my valuation, whether that be for subjective reasons, so I just don't believe it's worth that, or objective. You have me for too many bathrooms, or...
Let me talk a little bit more about that appeal. But that appeal will be for the following year. The taxes that you will pay for this year
correct. Your
will be what
assessment
you were assessed the prior year, and you had the opportunity to appeal it the prior year. If you were unable to take advantage of that, the appeal that you make now will be for the next taxable year.
That is correct. But I do want to point out, because this is important, if there is an objective issue, something, say we had you, wouldn't, but say we had you for a 2-story home and you only had 1 story. You are entitled to 3 years back to taxes on that, plus interest. So for objective issues, you do get 3 years. Even if you didn't file in those years, you are entitled to that refund.
Somebody says, I think I've got an objective issue. Can they come into your office and kind of get a small little consultation about whether it might fall into that category?
5 days a week, aside from federal holidays, come in, and absolutely, we will happily look at it. Even if it's a subjective issue, even if it's just a disagreement with value, we're not going to turn you away because it's not the appeal time. We're more than happy to talk to people.
In following my paperwork, because I do scrutinize, there's one key word on that green sheet of paper that really frosts my rear end.
Can I guess? Is that word improvement?
I'll be damned. I've lived in that house for 20 years. I've done absolutely, I'm being facetious now, I've done absolutely nothing to it other than cut my grass and rake my leaves and maybe wash my windows. But to say...
His wife will attest to this.
She will attest to it. But to say I physically did an improvement to that house, in fact, it is... Certain areas have fallen down. I'll give you an example. You made a statement of a 8 by 12 square foot shed. We have a little bitty shed in the back of our house that is no close to 120 square feet.
Okay.
It is half falling down, but I'm assessed over $1,900 on that little bitty shed.
You should appeal that.
Okay, well, I intend to now. Since
yes, absolutely.
My son had a Dalmatian, and he dug underneath the footings, and that shed is now roughly about 8 to 10 inches out of level. So no, the word improvements. Couldn't the state find a better word than improvement?
Structure, anything, anything other than that, basically. Because like you said, the word improvement, if you and I are talking in a non-assessment appraisal situation, the word improvement means I had something, I made it better. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In terms of assessing and appraisal, an improvement is an improvement upon the land. So anything that is not natural, that has been placed there man-made and has value, is an improvement. So whether that improvement was made in 1810 or 2025, it's an improvement. What makes it also doubly confusing is because, unfortunately, with a real estate market that just won't stop going up, you keep seeing that number go up, and so it looks like I've made improvements, when in reality what you're facing is, when Indiana switched in 2002 to market value and use, we'd never seen a real estate market like this, and it seemed incomprehensible that something like that would happen. Typically 5% or less a year would increase, and then it might go down. We're not seeing that, unfortunately, and so that's where a lot of the frustration where people get from their assessments, and understandable.
One of the things that our viewers should be aware of is there is a homestead exemption.
Yes.
Now, homestead exemptions, let me start with this one, apply to real property. So I'm going to ask Steve to talk about what is the difference between real property and personal property, because basically there are really only two types of property.
Right. So for homeowners, real property is going to be the only thing you're ever going to actually deal with. Personal property is going to be tangible items. There was a time where assessments did look at homeowners' personal property. You know, you could be the furniture you had in the house, the silverware. That's not done anymore. For a homeowner, you're just having real property, your land and the buildings or structures that are on it.
My dad very seldom took a day off from work, but the day that the Michigan Township Assessor was going to come to our house, he would be there. He would have a can of beer ready to go and a number of other things. So go ahead.
But yeah, so, but going back to, like you said, the homestead deduction, absolutely. And for anyone out there who is living in a home here, anywhere in LaPorte County, and you don't have a homestead deduction, you need to file that before it's due by January 1st, but that cuts your taxes in half. Absolutely, and a very important thing to have.
What is the ability to file a homestead exemption? What requirements do they have to meet?
So you'll file it with the auditor's office, but it has to be your primary place of residence. You have to have an ID showing that it is your primary residence, and you need to occupy it a majority of the year. And this is also very important. You cannot have one anywhere else within the entire country.
And also with the veterans out there, they not only have to have their identification, but they bring their DD-214
Right.
for additional information. Now, you make reference to homestead.
Well, just one more thing I want to add to that. Yeah, you bring your
Mm-hmm.
DD-214, but you also bring the percentage of disability that you have. In fact, Dave and I think are about the same, and it's 10%. But they're going to give you, they're going to tell the assessor's office, the auditor's office, what is the percentage of disability, because that's what they use.
Something also very important that did change with the Senate Bill 1, the over 65 deduction. Previously, it had, I don't remember the number that it was at, but they've increased the amount of income, annual income you're allowed to still qualify for the over 65 deduction. They also used to have a limit on how much your assessment could be. It was $240,000. If your assessment was higher than that, you were denied the deduction just outright. They have totally eliminated that. So everyone over 65 who qualifies with the income is eligible for it's $150 credit, and then there is a circuit breaker. A circuit breaker is an important thing that limits how much your taxes can go up from one year to the next.
Now, you can have a homestead exemption. You can also have a disability exemption from the federal government. Normally, that's going to come out of military service. And you can also have the over 65. Am I correct?
Yes. Yep, absolutely. None of those are exclusionary.
Now, percentage-wise, when you made reference to the homestead is valued at X amount of percent.
Right.
What is the veterans deduction, X amount of percent, and what is the
Unfortunately, because this is an auditor's thing, I don't know the veterans one as well. So I don't know the exact numbers on that one. It is worth filing. If you're eligible for it, absolutely get it, because I believe it is a percent of the total, and it caps at some amount, but I don't know that percent.
Well, let me give you an example. I know of a property in Cool Spring Township. Gentleman who's short-changed a relative of mine. He received the Purple Heart. His taxes were 0.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I've seen a number of them where, with a veteran's deduction, there's a number of them that you're either paying nothing or only the solid waste, which is the recycling fee. So yeah, absolutely, it is a deduction that if you are eligible for as a veteran, you got to go in. You can talk to the VA, talk to the auditor's office, and they'll get you squared away on that.
More and more, we're looking at manufactured housing. Now, in terms of, I'll just call it stick-built housing,
Right.
or the traditional type of housing, is there a difference in terms of assessments for manufactured housing versus the old stick-built housing?
So we do, we create what are called neighborhoods. These are going to be groupings of houses that are going to be valued together. Doesn't always have to be something that's geographically close. Obviously, if I talk about a neighborhood, normally I'm thinking my street, but a neighborhood is just anything that groups houses together. And we do group manufactured homes together separately from stick builds.
Yeah.
I will admit, over the last maybe 3 to 5 years, that difference is really going away. It's becoming negligible. People are willing to pay as much for, they just want somewhere to live, and they'll pay whatever loan they can get to get it, apparently. But we still, as of right now, yes, do differentiate manufactureds, mobile, and stick built.
Right, okay. So a person not only could, the potential is there to not only have manufactured housing, it's also there to put on your property a mobile home. Generally they're going to be fairly large, but it's the type of situation which if you had a truck, you could drive it around the country with, but you could also park one there and live in it, am I correct?
So a mobile home is going to be, for lack of a better word, a trailer. This
Yeah.
is it's on an axle. It's not typically one that you would be able to drive around and live in. It's one that you bring in and then you set on you wouldn't remove the axle. That's what would make something manufactured
So it
versus mobile.
would be immobile rather than...
Exactly. It's an immobile mobile home. That's when it would lose its VIN number and then you set it on block or something like that.
Okay, so one way an individual who lived in that type of facility could tell if they were eligible would be if they no longer had a VIN number
Right.
in that particular...
Yes, if they went to the BMV and had the VIN number removed, then that would make it a real property manufactured.
Okay, just a general question, but what are the problems that the assessor's office would look at today and say, boy, we've really got to figure out how we're going to handle this? Maybe you're in communications with the State Board of Accounts. They're not even sure about how some of this is going to work. What are the kinds of problems that you have to deal with that really there are no, at this point, some objective answers for?
The biggest issue we have is dealing with a constantly increasing real estate market. There's some factors that maybe we are stabilizing, possibly going to go down, but we've not yet seen that in the numbers. And so for us, it's taking those numbers and trying to make sure that we're not impacting people who maybe aren't seeing an increase. Say a neighborhood is getting increased, but if you have two neighborhoods that are combined from our perspective, and say this area, say there's a street that divides it, and this half isn't as desirable as this half, but we're comparing them, the good sales over here are going to drive them up when they shouldn't be. There's not an easy answer to that. It's just knowing your neighborhoods, knowing the area that you're assessing, and constantly analyzing that to try and not catch people in things that they shouldn't be.
Okay, over the years, I've been always complaining that the Michigan City Sanitary District has no concept of the water table level in the city of Michigan City. You've got homes that may be C classifications from ground level up.
Right.
But 4 foot down, because it's built on a slab, it sets on a water table. How do you handle that?
So, I mean, from the construction perspective, a house with a slab versus a house with a basement, that basement adds, let's just say, about $20,000 or more to the value. So your foundation
Assuming
type,
that it's not fixed up.
right? So your foundation type does assess it.
Can you utilize that water problem underground that nobody sees as a reason to appeal?
It would need to be something. I mean, you can appeal for anything, but what we're going to ask for in that instance is something quantifiable. How is it affecting?
My basement floods every time it rains.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so and we had a situation that there was a neighborhood that was having, due to some drainage issues, there were a bunch of basements flooding in a neighborhood, and so what we did for them during the period in which that was going on, we removed their basements. We felt that was...
No. Viewing audience, listen to what was just said. The people in Village Green.
Oh, this isn't Village. This one's outside. This is outside of...
Now, wait a minute. Wait a minute. On Riviera Drive, Riviera Drive has crawl spaces, and their crawl spaces flood when there's a torrential downpour because the city is not responsible enough to clean out ditches to allow a decent water flow to Lake Michigan. That, with the information that I've got, and I gleaned from Steve right now, is I think that's an issue that all of you people who have water in your basements can appeal.
Yeah, absolutely. If your basement or crawl space is unusable because of that, that is something that we need to address.
It doesn't matter where you live in the city. It's appealable.
Right.
We just don't pick on certain areas.
I'm just saying that it's an issue that I've been grinding on for the last, 10 or 12 years with no results, because no one has enough common sense to realize that there is a problem with the water table all the way up to Barker Ave, to Barker and Poplar that we were talking about, and so on. There is a problem. I had one of my tenants call. The basement shower backs up. And I said, well, the reason why, and I'll point out the maps to you, 1936 maps, that the water table is too high. A situation exists here in town. On that one situation alone, again, what I just gleaned from here, the appeal process could take place. And maybe, is it a possibility that I can appeal my taxes on my rental property based on the high water table in the area?
So with a rental property, it's going to be a little different, because I mean, there is the sales comparison approach, which is how like an occupied home is normally going to be valued, and that's the starting point with a rental. We then also look at rentals as an income producing property, and we do an income approach to value. We go with whatever's the lower of the two. But yes, if there's, say you have a basement or a crawl space that's flooding on a rental property, and we're unaware of that, and so its sales comparison is here and the income's here, down lower. But if we account for, okay, that crawl space is not good or it's a detriment, and we give it some sort of obsolescence for that, and it brings it below that, yes, absolutely.
Because as you drive around Michigan City, you always see these waterproofing services on an occasional basis in an individual's driveway, and you wonder what they're doing there. Well, I stopped by one of the houses and I asked, and what they did was they had to rotor-root out the inside of the foundation,
right,
to channel the water into a sump pit and so on. And possibly, if they would have appealed their taxes, maybe the entire basement could have been.
Yeah, I mean, if the basement's unusable, we definitely don't want, because again, at the end of the day, that cost is, we're trying to determine what that structure and what each part of that structure adds to the overall value of that property. And if a part of it's unusable, then it absolutely shouldn't be valued the same as one. Again, two identical houses, one's got a flooded basement permanently, that one's worth less.
Yeah, these individuals happen to be senior citizens that I brought this. I didn't bring the taxable issue to them, but I said, hey, there's a better way to build a mousetrap, and that's with look at the water underneath your basement and why is it seeping into your house. On Buffalo Street, again, we've got the same thing with the high water table on Buffalo and Ohio Street. And
just to give you an example, I live over by Marsh School, and
you know what I'm talking about.
I'm at the lowest part, and so the person
There's a reason they named it Marsh School.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The person who owned the house before me did not have a sump system, and the house flooded, the basement flooded. Luckily for me, they installed the sump system and did a bunch of great work, and I just got to benefit from that when I moved in. But
again, a lot of people don't think beyond their domain. They have no concept.
Come talk to us. Absolutely.
There's a way to communicate.
And there's, I mean, I won't deny that people have a fear of, I don't want to go fight with the government, or you can't win.
Well, I do.
Exactly. But not everybody's as feisty as you. But, come talk to us. We want it to be, accurate. Accuracy is our main goal. But we also want to be fair. I mean, we don't want to send people and say, oh, yeah, you've got a problem, but I don't like you, or I don't know you, so I'm not going to help you. No, like, if there's something with your house, we want it right, for our sake, but also for yours.
The first house that I bought on Buffalo and Russell Street, it set out of the ground about 4 or 5 courses high, but I didn't understand until I started working with Jim McCarty with the sanitary district, and so he put in a French drain in the bottom. They recognized the problem, but I still kept on getting this tax bill on a yearly basis. I didn't know. If I would have known 40 or 50 years ago, you bet I'd be beating your door down, and even before you were born.
Exactly.
Okay, now, I want to get us in on commercial property. I also want to get us in on a data center situation. So let me start next with commercial properties.
Okay.
We will talk, here you're talking about furniture stores, grocery stores, all the way up through motels. And is there a difference in how they handle these various commercial properties, or are they all basically the same, starting with something like cost and depreciating them from there?
So commercial is also done sales comparison,
Okay.
But we have to use whatever methodology is most accurate and most reliable. And unfortunately, you don't get a lot of sales the way you would. Like, a house is a house is a house, and you have neighborhoods of houses. Hotels is a great example you'd mentioned. There's a cost to build it, and that gives us a good starting point. When a hotel sells, very rarely do they sell that and remove all the personal property, and they don't remove the name. They sell the business, they sell the furniture, the beds, everything that's in there.
Yeah.
For our purposes, that's not a good sale, and so we can't use that. And you see that with a lot of commercial. I mean, you get a couple vacant, tenantless, no personal property commercial sales, but you still need 5 of a certain type to be able to use that sales comparison to make adjustments to your market factor. So, while yes, we do look at sales comparison, a lot of commercial is at cost, depreciated cost. And there is currently a case, I don't know where it's at exactly now, but it is with the Indiana Tax Court. I believe it's out of Tippecanoe County, where they are saying that commercial property should be done on cost, depreciated cost, because using these ineffective sales comparison has caused inequity.
So there, when you're talking depreciation, you're talking various types of depreciation, but I would assume that what you're talking about for property taxes is straight line depreciation.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, we have cost schedules that the state provides us, and it says, okay, a brick building built with X amenities and X type of finish will depreciate 2% every year until 10 years, then it'll depreciate 3%, and et cetera. So yes, it's a straight line depreciation for real property. Unless they adjust, they take out a permit and they re-site it or redo the interior or something like that.
Now, in terms of personal property in those hotels,
Right.
in various other places, do you do anything with that, or is that somebody else's domain?
It's not me, but it is the assessor's office, and I can speak at least reasonably on it. So personal property for businesses has existed for quite a while in Indiana. For the last couple of years, they had been increasing this deduction amount. So if your business personal property last year, this year was under $80,000, so you had less than $80,000 in total assets, you were exempt from personal property tax. With the passage of Senate Bill 1, next year, that amount, so anybody with business personal property less than $2 million will be exempt. So I forget the exact number we had now. It was 200 and some, 300 and some or more. Don't quote me on that number. Next year we'll have less than 100 businesses filing business personal property.
So when you're looking at garages, let's say, that have a truck that's valued at $100,000 because they have to tow and they have to do some other things, that would fall under that category. So if they had less than $200,000,
$2 million.
$2 million.
Next year it goes to $2
Oh, okay.
million.
All right.
It's huge.
So as a result of that, they will not have to pay personal property.
Most businesses will not be paying business personal property taxes starting next year.
Okay.
In reading Senate Bill 1, it says 30% depreciation for business personal property placed in service after January 1, 2025 is being phased out with a caveat. This change allows businesses to depreciate equipment more fully for property tax purposes. However, it does not apply to properties located within existing TIF districts. TIF districts? Oh, that's not. You want to get all.
Hey, I don't want. I'm just going to stop talking right now.
Thank you for bringing that up, Steve. Gives me more ammunition. I don't even want to
But
get
so
on.
just to point out another benefit to that is there used to be a floor. Your business personal property could only depreciate to 30%, and it had to stay. Even though it might depreciate to 0 eventually, in real life, for assessment purposes, it stopped at 30. They've removed that, so now your stuff depreciates all the way down to where, unless you're in a TIF.
Yeah, because again, TIF district, 15% of the assessed value of the TIF district on new construction goes for community schools as well as municipalities in this new state law.
Okay, and again, there's a lot in SB1 that even I'm not.
Correct. And I'm just saying, Angie, you better get that budget established, young lady. As well as redevelopment commission, you better wake up, redevelopment commission.
Dave makes money for the attorneys in Michigan City. So when he runs for mayor,
don't get nervous.
he's going to have somebody that he can go to.
This just came up in conversation.
Now, all
Absolutely.
of these bureaucracies
There's a lot
in
of
Michigan
facts and
City
figures.
wind up having to hire lawyers because of Dave. But anyway.
But the fact of the matter is, again, the school system under the old legislation has been shortchanged since 2014 by the Redevelopment Commission. Now the Redevelopment Commission, hopefully their attorney, will open up his eyes and read Senate Bill 1 and see what their responsibilities are and convey that information to the Redevelopment Commission so that they will be aware of the new tax legislation that's being put in place. I'm waiting for that to happen, Steve.
Well, I would only add to, well, I'm not
That's the city
adding to it.
attorney.
No.
From 2014 on, up until a couple of years ago, they were not being shortchanged. The school system has a responsibility to understand the law. They send their controller and other people into various types of conferences to understand the law. If they don't understand it and they don't apply for what is right, it's just like the city not applying for grants. If the city doesn't apply for a grant, they're not going to get it. They may be entitled to it, but they're not going to get it.
The individuals in Marion County and southern Indiana and as close as Valparaiso have been taking advantage of this concept of TIF district since 2011. They knew about it in Marion County. Their school system is basically funded through TIF district revenue. I'm just saying, lack of communication in my mind isn't a reason why individuals such as our schools could not take advantage of it. It's a lack of communication, a lack of desire on behalf of the Redevelopment Commission conveying this information to the school system.
not up to them to
That's where
convey it.
no, that's where the problem is. If you write a law and if the law specifically says 15% goes to, that 15% goes to.
It says if they ask for it. They never ask for it. They have to ask for it.
In my mind, that's a moot point, because if they ask for it in Marion County, around our state
All they had
capital,
to do was look at what Marion County did,
that is correct.
what Valpo did.
That is correct.
Now that's a little
Well,
homework.
why is it up to us to convey this
Because it's
information?
up to the people on-
Because we've got individuals in this community that don't want to convey the information, the proper information to go where it's supposed to go.
We put people on boards. We pay them. We put people into positions where they're supposed to do the work. When they don't do the work, you get somebody in here who will do it.
Well, then voters, you out there, you see what you voted for? You
Yeah.
voted for a
I'll
lack
agree
of
with you on
communication, a lack of viable communication
A lack
between
of
the school,
homework.
a lack of viable communication between people like you, the school system, the Redevelopment Commission. You have to scrutinize who you elect for a public office so that they in turn will read the law and be able to implement the law for the betterment of the taxpayers, because we are the ones who are funding the schools. We are the ones who are funding municipality based on our property tax assessment.
Let's go back to, before we don't get into it, data centers.
We got you uptight yet?
No. Hey,
This,
I'm probably the
This
most
one-
anti-government government employee you'll ever have on.
Well,
so-
do you get any of those vibes out of my comment?
No.
No?
You seem to be a big fan of big government.
Oh, yeah. Well,
and
I'll
you
keep
can
my
tell that, and you can tell it.
Before we go on, the producer of this program was Bob. I wanted to come in today with just my clipboard, open the program and close the program without saying anything, because I figure I don't have to say anything because he has all of the T's crossed and all of the I's dotted.
As a result of his comments today, he is kicked out of the house. He's sleeping out in that barn he talked about for the next 3 days.
Oh, man.
That's the shed that's going downhill.
Well, don't fix it up, because then it might be accessible.
Wait a minute, let's get
Yeah.
data, before we don't get to them, let's get data centers in here, because that is really the coming situation.
Yeah.
They will pay a huge amount of taxes, both in terms of real property and personal property. I think everybody in the city is looking forward to this, because it certainly will have a positive effect on the money that comes into the civil city and some things you haven't thought about. The Michigan Township Board, the Michigan Township trustee. Those people will also benefit. The library in Michigan City will benefit. The school system, which is a Michigan City area school system, not just Michigan City, will also benefit. So let's start one more time about talking about the difference between real property and personal property. So when we get into this, you'll have a good idea of what Steve is talking about. One
Yeah,
more time.
absolutely. So let's use data centers as an example. So you build a data center. We want to use the example of exactly what we've got, or we'll use what we've got here. So you've got an existing industrial property. You've got land and an industrial building on it. That is real property. It is concrete, it's mortar, it's windows, it's a roof, it's walls.
Yeah.
That is your real property. So the assessment of that should be relative to the cost of what it takes to not only what's existing there, but because they're improving it, not to get into that word, but they are renovating it, and so it will increase that real property value. That does depreciate again over time, but ultimately, it's going to go up. They're going to put a significant amount of money, I'm guessing to the tunes of millions, into that building to make it suitable for their structure.
We've heard everything, let's just say 600 million.
Okay, and I don't want to get too far off, so I'll stick with the personal property thing first. So you've got your structure, your shell, so to speak, the land, the shell, everything inside of that is personal property.
Right.
So the servers, the specialized electrical systems, the specialized cooling systems, the desks, the chairs,
the software system.
the software, the systems, everything that's inside of there that is not something that would go with the building. If I, say the data center was leaving and they were just selling their building, anything that they're going to take with them is their personal property. And that is again, it's taxed at 3% the same as, or it's capped at 3% the same as the real property for commercial and industrial stuff. Again, cities sometimes choose to abate personal property and not real, or vice versa. Data centers are unique. Again, they're new, and so the data on them is limited, but they have a higher percentage of personal property relative to real property than most typical commercials.
But the abatements there would be a civil city situation.
Right.
Yes.
So the way I was talking about like assessments, at the end of the day, the assessor's office, we don't care what the tax revenue from any property is. Our job is to assess its value according to the rules set down by the state of Indiana. What the municipalities, what the districts, what the county choose to do with that number to then turn it into tax revenue is up to them. If they abate it, if they exempt it, that's them.
Now, in possession of that property is a developer. As I recall, Phoenix Partners is the name of it. It comes out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So they are the owners of that property, both the real property and, if there's any in there, the personal property that's in there.
The Phoenix people.
Right.
Yeah. At the end, when this is fully built, the Phoenix Partners will have some decisions to make. They're going to get offers, or they will entertain offers. One of the situations that they may have in terms of an offer is to buy the facility. The other situation they may have is for someone to lease that facility on a long-term basis. Is there any difference between the way that building will be taxed if it's sold to an owner or if it is leased? So in that case, Phoenix Partners would stay as the lessor. They will then have a lessee. Is there any difference in how that will be taxed?
No, so I mean, it might depend on who's paying what. Say that Phoenix might pay the real property assessment taxes, and say that then the data, whichever.
That would be a contractual.
But that would be between them. The amount, say it's 600 million. That's 600 million, whether it's Phoenix owning it, Phoenix leasing it, Phoenix selling it. It's whatever that value is.
Okay.
Yep. So there's no getting around that.
So I am told that one of the situations that happens with these data centers is they lease out on a long-term basis a portion of their property. That would then be a portion of the real property and a portion of the personal property, I believe. But Steve can certainly correct me if I'm wrong on that. So now we have, if they lease a portion of that property, we have another lessor and a lessee. It's possible that if Phoenix Partners is the first-time lessor to a lessee, then the lessee leases out a certain part of that property, which is probably what's going to happen. Then the lessee not only becomes that, for legal purposes, they also become a lessor to another lessee. Any difference on how that would be taxed?
The only thing I could see possibly starting to come in, and if it's something that they can try, they might. But going back to that deduction thing, it's anything under $2 million is exempt. So if they were to break it up into enough constituent, not connected companies that were all individual, and each of their personal property was under $2 million, they would be exempt.
Wow.
Wow.
And
You and I are going into the business.
Okay, I've got a harebrained idea. Again, it just popped in just like those lights above us. Will the state, first of all, pertaining to NIPSCO, NIPSCO is a public service, is by the state. The state regulates the assessment on NIPSCO property.
In a lot of ways, yes.
Will it ever materialize that the state establishes data centers as a state utility?
I'm glad you said that, because that was actually something I was thinking about recently.
You were, huh?
Because of the fact that federal administrations ago, I believe they declared that internet is a public utility. Well, I mean, what is data centers?
Right. And how would
They're like
how would
a
it
pump
affect-
station for the internet, as far as I
That's
can
right.
tell.
How would it
So-
affect your job? Yeah.
I mean, and so if they do decide to go that route, then what you would likely see is a situation similar. And so NIPSCO, the way NIPSCO's assessment is handled is that they are state distributable property. So their power lines, their poles, their generating
Same
stations.
thing like with Comcast.
Right. They give all of this information to the state. The state then tells them, here's how much you owe in taxes. The NIPSCO pays that money to the state, and then the state disperses it to us, to our auditor's office. I could see that being a route that data centers go. It would, because unfortunately, with 92 counties in Indiana and multiple townships and stuff, they probably don't want to run the risk of 92 different methodologies of assessment.
That data is established from those 92 counties
Yeah. So
within a data center. So it
there's
seems-
nothing that's been said in my earshot about that, but that is one of the directions I could easily see them going.
And if data becomes a reality more than what it is here in Northwest Indiana, Northwest Indiana, in my mind, is going to become the new Silicon Valley of data here in the state of Indiana.
Well, let's don't go overboard yet.
Well, think about what I just said.
Let me ask him a few more questions, because I think we want to go a little farther than this. If in fact Phoenix Partners sells their total interest to a new buyer, that new buyer becomes the owner of the property. They will be on a depreciation schedule just like a motel or a hotel, or will that be handled differently?
No, we would not use that. I mean, we might use it as some guidance, but we're not going to use that sale to say, okay, they sold it for $1 billion and we're going to assess them at $1 billion, because unfortunately we know they're selling personal property. We know they're selling specialized
I can't see how they could. They're under a 10-year tax abatement. First of all, they're under a 10-year tax abatement, and that has to expire before they would.
You just jumped on me. Let me get this out first. Gosh.
I'm reading. Hey, I've been accused of being Nostradamus numerous times, so I mean, I'm just okay.
Your wife is going to be calling.
I got it. I'm going to shut up.
Okay. Now, in terms of that depreciation,
Yes.
will that schedule will not work. You will have a different schedule.
The real property depreciation schedule is just going to be the one that's from the cost schedules provided by the state. The personal property, if they continue to do it as personal and is not as state distributable, uses the IRS's depreciation.
So you're going to be basically following the State Board of Accounts.
Yes.
In terms of how.
And we don't assess the personal property. That is self-reported. So
Okay.
whoever owns it would tell us what the personal property. Now, we do contract with an auditing company,
Yeah.
and they do audit personal property assessments. They look at their federal returns. They look at, a business of this size, of this type, should have X amount of assets, and they're claiming a tenth of that. Now, again, and audits always sound bad, but we've had a number of people who were audited, and it's like, hey, no, you're claiming things that you shouldn't be. And they actually then got a refund based on that. But we do watch these things, so.
Now, in terms of abatements, right now, Phoenix Partners has a couple of abatements. The press has reported that the owners, once this goes into operation, there will be no abatements other than a state sales tax abatement that the state of Indiana gave to them. This would not apply to any local property. But that's if the ownership changes. If the ownership does not change and Phoenix Partners stays as a lessor, will the abatements that Phoenix Partners have, will they continue?
Well,
or
like
will
I said,
that be up to the
as far
city
as,
council?
I was gonna say, as far as I know, it's a 10-year abatement working on so first year it's 100% abated, 90% the next year, downward until after that 10th year it's zero. The city and Phoenix could at any time decide to renegotiate that if that's something they felt was in their interest. But again, that doesn't affect the value, it just affects
But
the tax revenue.
if Phoenix Partners totally sells their interest, then would that still apply?
That goes in, and that would be details that I don't know if the city has shared that. Unfortunately, I don't know as much about this exact abatement, but typically it's the abatement is with the company that it was made with, without options to sell.
Right.
So I would assume they would have to renegotiate.
Got it.
I can't say that with certainty,
That was my
but
assumption also.
that is typical
Yeah.
that it would end that abatement. It would end that abatement program for.
Because people have been screaming and hollering about abatements, and as a result of that, I'm thinking, well, it depends on how this works out in terms of who gets the abatements. It's still going to involve a huge amount of payments.
I was going to say, if I'm not mistaken, also the data center has agreed certain payments in lieu of tax, or not even in lieu,
They
on
have.
top of the taxes. They've
Yeah.
said, well, for the abatement period, it's in lieu of, and then over time, they're going to continue to pay
Yeah,
amounts
yeah.
regardless of taxes. So that's
Yeah.
usually a good thing to try and
A
get.
scenario, okay, grandma who has a,
Grandma does not own an interest in a debt.
who has, no,
She might have
no,
invested
who
well.
who has lived in this property for the last 50 years. The property is D-minus condition and
Okay.
so on. How can we lower her taxes?
That over 65 deduction, if she's not getting that, she needs to file for that.
Why can't we just cut her taxes in half? Because she's lived there 50 years of her life.
Well,
She's
first
on
of
her
all,
downward slope.
you wanna-
She has limited funds in the bank. Why should she continue to be assessed a tax on the property that she brought up a family with, raised family that are
If you want
grown up?
my unpopular opinion on how homesteads shouldn't be taxed, but that's not a discussion for here. At the end of the day, all we do is we assign a value, and I have to assign the value that I believe to be accurate. It would actually be a felony for me to knowingly underassess something.
That's great.
Then the legislation is written at the state of Indiana,
Right.
establishing
They
your guidance.
establish that, and they establish how taxes are to be collected. Now there are opportunities. Counties and municipalities can choose, and I don't know them all off the top of my head, but there are deductions that municipalities can choose to enact that can help residents if they so choose to do so. So I mean, again, I definitely tying real estate. It's kind of a weird thing. Tying real estate assessments to the market has been problematic. It's caused big increases for everyone's assessments. But at the end of the day, your assessment is not the full answer to your taxes, because at the end of the day, your tax rate is based on assessment, tax rate to fulfill budgetary needs.
Correct.
Your taxes, so if the budgetary needs stay the same or go down, your assessment could stay the same or go up, and you could still see a decrease.
But she has been paying budgetary needs for the last 50 years. Don't you think there should be some justification to the older generation
If you go
to cut
through-
them some slack?
If you go through everything she can file, and she's probably going to need help from her kids or somebody like this, but first of all, she should be getting a homestead exemption.
Right.
Now, if she's got disabilities, that disability should also come into play. Now, we're under the over 65. They'll have to look at her income. By the time they get through with all these, I bet you she pays.
And I believe the income amount is like $60,000 a year.
But she's on a $380 a month fixed income Social Security check. Come on, state, let's wake up our legislators down in Indianapolis, get your head out of your rear end and realize that there's a problem that exists up here. 46% of the residents of Michigan City live at or are below the poverty level.
49%.
Well, who cares? There's a lot of people in Michigan City that live at or live, well, even the Salvation Army said, or was it?
Or 61.
61%.
If you go by the Alice report.
Yeah, I'm just saying, there are problems out there. This guy's just doing his job based on legislation that is written by one individual who just got arrested and just got thrown in jail for drunken driving. He was probably involved in implementing some of this legislation to begin with. I wonder who that might be. Any idea? His first name was Mike?
Yeah, I think I know who it
Yeah.
is, but we're not going to get into that.
Well, I'm just saying, well, we got 10 minutes to go. I can criticize more people, I guess.
Well, okay.
But at the end of the day, what my main point is responsible spending by the government. That is what affects your taxes. Your assessment can go up 1,000,000%, but if the if the government spends less, your taxes go up.
That's
Let me
true
ask
as well.
another- Let me ask another question. This facility is being built in Michigan Township.
Right, that is
So
correct.
it's only going to affect the taxing entities in Michigan Township, other than the school system, most of which is located in Michigan Township. Is that a fair statement?
I believe there is a portion of even stuff within Michigan Township that pays county. A portion of it is still county tax.
Right, so you will
But-
get a county.
But the majority, yes, would go to the specific district that it's.
My
within.
understanding was like a 60-40 split.
Okay.
60% Michigan City, 40% county.
And that could be about right. Like I said, I don't know the exact breakdowns at that level.
Okay. What are you planning on doing for the next 5 years? Have you thought about where you would like to be? You've got a tremendous amount of knowledge. I'm sure that there's corporations that are looking for guys like you.
I mean,
Are you going to tell me you've never thought about this?
the next 5 years, I would really like to be maybe a ranger with our national park. So that's
Okay, all right.
totally.
That was not the answer.
Yeah, exactly. So I might be good at this, but it's not my dream.
All right. Well, we're fortunate to have you in the assessor's office, that's for sure.
And like I said, I mean, I cannot overstate this. Come talk to us. I mean, again, we are people. We're not, and we want to, if there is a way we can help, we're going to do it. We would rather have people leave that office. Again, we're not going to commit a felony for you, but if there's a way we can help you, we're going to do it. So
Now, the one I haven't really talked about very much, we also have a Michigan Township assessor. Where does the county assessor in the Michigan Township assessor, how much is delegated to the Michigan Township assessor, and how much does the county do?
So everything within Michigan Township, which is going to be from Muir Road west and from Cool Spring Ave north, is Michigan Township.
Right.
They are, as it is written by law, fully responsible to do all of the assessment work. They do their own personal property, they do their data collection, they do their own ratio study. Where the law gets weird is that if they don't do their job, the county assessor becomes responsible to do it. We've had instances in the past, not this current administration, but previous ones, where there were issues where the county had to come in and say, okay, we have to do your job now because you didn't. We communicate with them regularly. Again, there's things that we might not always agree on, but ultimately it is the Michigan Township Assessor's Office jurisdiction within there. Unless it goes to like the state. If you do appeal it and you take it up the multiple levels, you're at the state, the county does represent it at that point. So there is also that, but ultimately they are as much assessors, they are the assessors for Michigan Township, beside those few
Okay, out of the kindness of your heart, Steve, the kindness of your heart, do you or any of the township assessors make house calls in certain situations?
Oh, absolutely. We've done.
So it's not. Don't be afraid, Grandma out there. Pick up your telephone. Contact. Last name is Pollock. Sound like good Polish boy. Again, he just said he makes house calls if the situation
absolutely.
And like my father, have a can of beer ready.
Yeah. I wish it was like those days. We will come to your house. Also, say you have so just this year, there was a situation in Trail Creek, and the assessor and his chief deputy, they went to the Trail Creek, I think they met at the DAV, so they could go over and get a beer after. But they met at the DAV, they had people come from the community, and we discussed the situation. And
okay, for those of you out there that don't realize, these guys don't know what beer is called in Polish, it's piwa. Rozumiesz? Beer is piwa in Polish.
I do like some Żywiec, so.
So I'm just saying, I try to bring a little levity to this program with my questions, but there's always a better way to build a mousetrap. And if you don't ask questions, and such as my poignant questions about miscellaneous things, you don't get a receptive answer to. And then you just sit there and shiver, and then the tax man is on the doorstep with the repossession order, and they're beating on your door because they're selling your house at tax sale. There are ways to get around this, and that's through communication. That particular dialogue exists at the county level. It should exist at the city level. It doesn't exist in my mind at the state. Wow, I thought we were 5 minutes a few minutes ago. Or was it 10 minutes that Andy held up there?
Well, let me add something to that. It's also very important that boards that are appointed, such as the school board or the redevelopment commission, or those, do their homework. I'm sorry, but I know that you're way underpaid for the amount of hours it takes to do this, but there's a lot of homework involved in each of these boards, and the people on it have to do the homework. If they're not getting it done, then it's up to, in this case, generally the mayor's office, to replace them and find out ahead of time who was willing to do the work to understand what is going on. And it's not just on one specific issue that happens to come before the board that night and it's on the agenda. It's an overall approach to the various situations that are out there. The other thing we have to take advantage of, and this is not in the taxation area, it's grants. There's a lot of grants available out there, but you have to have people go through and find them. One of the reasons I like having these large corporations come into Michigan City, such as I think will ultimately happen here with the data center, is that they tend to have foundations. Now, corporations, in a lot of cases, don't make contributions to not-for-profit organizations. They refer you to the foundation. They've got foundations that do this, and they legally have to make these kinds of contributions. You just got to find out who they are, and then how you write the appeals to those foundations. The big one throughout Indiana is the Lilly Foundation. It's for a pharmaceutical company listed on the New York Stock Exchange, Eli Lilly Corporation. But their foundation makes a lot of grants throughout the state of Indiana. We just have to go through and find out what those grants are for and how we qualify.
I have a question, Steve, pertaining to assessing a trailer park.
Okay.
For example, a trailer park that I'm quite aware of has numerous concrete pads.
Right.
Okay, that individual who owns the property gets assessed for his concrete pad. The owner of the trailer gets assessed for the property that resides on the concrete pad.
Yeah, so the park is assessed one way as commercial property, so it's a per pad and then acreage
pad.
and then the quality of the park overall, and then each individual mobile home is assessed individually using NADA, which is a automobile valuation system.
Okay,
like
based on the fact that they don't own that concrete pad that they rent on a monthly basis.
Right.
Do they get any consideration in state legislation to knock off some of the assessed value on their trailer? Because some of these
Unfortunately
trailers,
not.
see, again, another area.
It's one of those where it will be passed on to them likely by the park owner.
That is correct, and it's another area where you've got senior citizens out there that may be on a fixed income that they could save a buck or two if they knew what the law was. And based on that issue alone, if you can justify the $500 a month rental fee on your cement pad versus the assessment that you have on your 30-year-old 30-year-old mobile home that you took from nothing and revitalized it and put in a new water heater and did this and that, that should have a bearing on the assessment on your property. Again, there's a way to do it.
Absolutely.
You just have to know the ins and outs.
And we have to demand more from our legislators for that. I mean, unfortunately, homeowners get a voice, but we aren't special interests.
Yeah, you've got people living in these areas that I guarantee on limited income. I know that for a fact.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And again, at least they're off the streets. They're not living in woods. They're not camping out behind my house that they've normally done in the past, or behind Walmart and so on. We're getting down to 1 minute to go. Bob, final?
Yeah. First of all, thank you very much.
Hey,
for coming.
I'm glad you guys had me.
Really
This was
appreciate
fun. This was
I think
absolutely
I think it's
only somewhat scary.
I think it's something that a lot of people have learned at least the basics about, and enough to know that maybe I've got an appeal, and this is how I find out.
One way that come talk to us. Absolutely, come talk to us.
Well, yeah. Where do we find you?
So Michigan, 555 Michigan Ave is the LaPorte County office, and I don't know the.
It just moved.
But the Michigan City Courthouse is where the Michigan Township Assessor's
The
office is.
Hyler building? Is that it?
We're in the Hyler.
You're in the Hyler.
Yes.
That's across. That's east of the city. That's east of the of this jail, Michigan City. All right,
Yeah,
County
LaPorte.
jail.
So you got the courthouse, the jail. We're across the street from that, and then the new courthouse is where the.
Again, I think
Before we close, I want to say one more time. Think about the orchards in LaPorte County. Go out. The cider is fantastic. The apples are even better. They've got all kinds of produce. Make it available to yourself.
Okay, Andy is getting antsy. I can see him get ready to jump. I want to thank everybody for watching. Your input as to improvements and criticism of this program is greatly appreciated. Please contact by co-producers Bob Pollock or Dave Bilo with your comments. You can email Bob at skrpollock@gmail.com, Dave at djbilo1@hotmail.com, or you may direct your ideas for any future shows to our one and only staff writer who does absolutely nothing for this program. Her name is Sarah Bellum. Showing of our program will be Saturday morning at 10 a.m. and Monday and Thursday evening at 7 p.m. on Channel 99. You may also watch us on YouTube, Navigate News and Views. I want to thank you for watching, and make it a good day.
That was good.
Thanks.
Very good.